This is Logan Thomas, tight end for the Washington Commanders, and you're listening to the Best Bell Fantasy Podcast.
Howdy, everyone. It's Bradley Stalder, and this is the Best Bell Fantasy Football Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Tonight, Emily Lefco joins the podcast where we'll discuss sleepers and breakout candidates. But before we do, Emily, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm having a great night. It's been a good day, and I just had pizza, so I can't complain.
Ooh, all right.
And I'm in my lucky Brett Favre jersey, so that always brings a spark to my day.
Lucky Brett Favre
there
jersey.
You go.
I got the cheese head even behind me. So
I have a cheese head behind me. Oh, that's awesome. I love that. What a surprise bonus.
This is great.
This is great. Yeah. It's already a great show.
Emily, you had pizza tonight. So what are the toppings? What are your top toppings here?
Pizza, ranking our toppings. Pizza, pepperoni and pineapple.
Ooh, okay. All right.
I know. I've heard the rebuttals.
Look, as long as it's not, I can't do fish on the pizza. It just can't happen.
Oh,
I'm sorry. No.
People do that?
Look, they'll put anything on the pizza, but
oh my.
So no, I can't do the anchovies, but yeah, anything meat. And we've had the pineapple, the ham and pineapple usually, but pepperoni and pineapple, that's more unique combination.
It's pretty delicious. For a while, I wasn't eating meat, but I was losing hair and losing weight, and I felt very unsteady. So until I'm a little bit more established, I will go back to a lifestyle closer to that, but it's hard to not eat meat. I like to be strong as a female. I like muscle. It's just all about it.
Fair enough. Okay, awesome. Well, let's jump into it. Before getting into listing out our candidates and talking about each of them, I think it's important for us in this context to define our terms, because we can say this player is going to be a sleeper, this player is going to be a breakout, but what does that mean? Like, we can say anybody could be a sleeper or breakout, but let's at least give the context for the listeners and viewers of what in this context is a sleeper and a breakout. For tonight, a sleeper is going to be a player drafted after ADP 120 or after the 10th round, based on the ADPs we see right now, who we think can step into a top 24 running back or wide receiver spot, or a top 12 quarterback or tight end spot. That, you know, obviously those ADPs are not going to be matching up with top 12 or top 24 wide receivers or running backs. You're not going to get those types of players later on in the draft. And then the breakout candidate is an unproven player who we think can have a top 12, so a running back one or a wide receiver one season, or a top 6 quarterback or tight end season. All right, Emily, kick us off. Who is your number one sleeper for the 2022 season?
I did not prioritize them. I did not put them in order of vacation, or if I think they're going to be of relevancy sooner than they should than another player. But I'm starting us off with Rojo. So Ronald Jones of Kansas City, currently sitting in the running back 2 position. He's being drafted at around ADP 128. I think he has a path to relevancy. If we think about it, CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he has been injury prone. Even when healthy in the playoffs last year, CEH didn't perform well. Andy Reid and the Chiefs are big on Jones because they think he'll fit in their system. So he could easily have a high ceiling. It could turn into a 50-50 backfield. But if he outperforms CEH, he could control the backfield on his own. He has the ability, but he hasn't been given the chance to prove it yet. That's why I think he's my first player that I'd like to nominate.
Yeah, Ronald Jones, certainly a bigger bruiser than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a smaller player.
Yes.
You mentioned he struggled with the injuries. I was talking with Dr. Edward Porras, physical therapist, a couple days ago, and I mentioned, doesn't Clyde Edwards-Helaire have all these injury issues and like the gallbladder surgery? And he said, if you're trying to forgive Clyde Edwards-Helaire for all of the issues he had in the last couple seasons because of the gallbladder, you're off base. So this is much more like Ron Jones is not someone that I had been drafting a lot of, but bringing him up in this spot and thinking about the role he has, I think he's a player that I need to be drafting a little bit more.
Yeah, I have quite a few shares of him that I've been drafting in the later rounds.
All right. I'll
Who
share
do you have?
my first sleeper is Jamison Crowder.
Okay.
And Crowder's going at wide receiver 61 on Underdog Fantasy, ADP 132. And my reasoning is this. I think Crowder's still a very good player, but he's been on bad teams for the last 5, 6, 7 years, essentially his entire career. From 2017 through 2020, though, he's had a 20+% target share every season. He just struggled with injury last year. Now he joins the Buffalo Bills, and they didn't re-sign Cole Beasley, who's 4 years older than Jamison Crowder. And Cole Beasley ripped off 3 straight 100-target seasons with the Bills and 2 straight 80 or more reception seasons. He's a better version than Cole Beasley, and there's not a lot of competition. What, 5th round Khalil Shakir? That's not going to challenge him this year. So I think that Jamison Crowder, tied to a really good offense in a role that we've seen be really productive, he should be higher than wide receiver 61.
Yeah.
Your next sleeper candidate here.
I have chosen Tyler Algier to keep an eye on out of Atlanta. He's being drafted at ADP 152. There is a bit of a struggling O-line in Atlanta. If their offensive line can improve and they can step up their game, he could also step up his game. Cordarrelle Patterson is 30 years old plus. He'll be producing for a little bit longer, or his production will drop off. And when it drops off, it's going to be Algier's backfield to take over.
I like that. He's built differently than Cordarrelle Patterson for sure. And there's
absolutely,
he's built different. He's younger. He'll probably last longer in the season, which means that if Cordarrelle Patterson, which we saw last year, he just crumbled. He fell apart. Like, it was the Mike Davis syndrome where he could only handle 4 or 5 games of usefulness and then fell apart. And so Tyler Algier, certainly, I like him. I started projections, and I have Algier getting about 30% of the carries, over 100 carries, a little bit in the passing game. So I think that there is a path to significant relevance for him. So I like that call.
I think so too. I'm glad you see it, my friend.
My next sleeper candidate, and this was getting pretty close, but I think a big, not just sleeper, but also breakout candidate, if you can think of the Venn diagram crossing over, Cole Kmet. He's going at ADP 139. And this is coming from a Packers fan. Look, I don't want the Vikings. I don't want the Bears. I don't want the Detroit Lions doing well. But I see Cole Kmet and the target share that he had last season, 17.7% target share, 19.7% red zone target share. And he had, let me count it, exactly 0 receiving touchdowns. That is not only bound to increase, but his trajectory is to probably overproduce and swing the other way. He might get 8, 9 touchdowns this year, because who else is going to be catching the ball? It's going to be Darnell Mooney, and it's going to be Cole Kmet. They probably will combine for 50% of the targets. Kmet was 10th among all tight ends last year with a 23.5% target rate. So with Jimmy Graham gone, yeah, give me all the Cole Kmet. He's one of my most drafted players on Underdog.
Nice. I dig that. I'm going to be keeping that in mind. I'm currently in an Underdog draft, and I have to pick a tight end soon, so we'll see.
Cole Kmet. Yeah. All right. So next, your third sleeper, Emily.
My third sleeper is, this might not surprise anyone, but I'm picking Alec Pierce out of Indiana, currently sitting at wide receiver 2, being picked up at ADP 157. I really like him. I am high on Alec Pierce because I think he can thrive and do really well in the Colts offense with Matty Ice throwing him the ball. I think eventually most defenses will shift their attention and focus onto Michael Pittman, creating more volume and opportunity for Alec Pierce.
Yeah, we know what kind of passing volume Matt Ryan is going to give that offense. So if you're in on Michael Pittman, you need to be in on the rest of the Colts offense too. And Alec Pierce, Second round draft capital out of Cincinnati. We saw him perform very well with Desmond Ridder, and we know Matt Ryan is such a significant upgrade over Ridder. So I like that. My question is whether Alec Pierce is going to get the snaps immediately, because there's Paris Campbell still coming back from injury. So whether he can beat him out right away is going to be a question, because maybe Paris Campbell will just continue to get injured and then we won't even have this conversation.
That's what I'm thinking. It's hard to come back from injuries. I have a whole body full of them.
Oh no.
Eventually you get beaten up and you slow down, you stop. Eventually gravity hits.
Yeah, this is true.
Can you tell I have a lot of shares of Alec Pierce?
I love it. I needed this. You're the first Alec Pierce stan I've run into. So this is an enjoyable moment for me. I'm glad.
Okay.
I'm glad you're able to share your
I'm
love
glad
for
we're
him.
sharing a moment.
Absolutely.
Yes.
My third sleeper, Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is going at ADP 156. He's quarterback 21 off the board. Let's just forgive everything that happened last year with New York Giants, because their offensive coordinator, Jason Garrett, the head coach, it's just Joe Judge. The whole offense was a complete mess. They've upgraded everywhere. The offensive line, they've improved their wide receiver core with Wan'Dale Robinson. Sterling Shepard, he's going to be out, but he'll hopefully be back near the end of the season. Kenny Golladay will have a better season. Can't get much worse for Kenny Golladay. Darius Slayton plays a pretty good role. And then Saquon Barkley. Derek Brown jumped in and said he feels like he was bad luck because you dropped right off the bat, right when he joined in. And he and a few other analysts have talked me into Saquon Barkley bounce back season. So if all of the weapons are there, the offensive line is there, and the defense still isn't great, this is wheels up for Daniel Jones, who, Emily, I don't know if you remember, at one point a couple years ago, there was significant controversy of who was the better quarterback coming out of year one, Josh Allen or Daniel Jones. Yes. And it wasn't clear after year one, because Daniel Jones had his 2019 season, 17.2 fantasy points per game. That was quarterback 15. So a high-end quarterback too. To get into that top 12, I don't think it would be that crazy.
No, I don't think so either. I like that call. I'm with you. I wasn't planning to be on that one, but I'm hearing you now.
Yeah, I've been talked into the Giants myself, so maybe this is like a domino effect here. We can blame.
I noticed your T-shirt. You're wearing the Scott Fishbowl T-shirt.
Yeah, represent just came in the mail today, so freshly, not even washed.
Nice. So nice.
Yeah, awesome. Emily, you've got one more sleeper for us.
I do, and that's Irv Smith, tight end 1, Minnesota. He's being drafted at 140. I like the kid. He's 23. He's young. I think he's going to be a beast. He has the potential to be a high-volume target in that offense. He could be in line for a breakout year, but also I think that he could easily become a favorite in the red zone target as well, or become a favorite red zone target. Still Absolutely. Got Kirk Cousins going on. You just have Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. It's wide open for Irv Smith. There's going to be so much coverage on JJ. It's going to be beautiful with Kirk Cousins.
I agree. Kirk Cousins and Irv Smith and all the rest of the Minnesota offense. As hard as it is for the Packers fan and me to say, the Minnesota offense is going to be pretty good this year. Irv Smith is definitely a target for me.
The problem with me is that I don't have a lot of hate. This is a good thing. I don't have a lot of hate in me, but if there's anything I despise, it's the Bears. The Bears.
The Bears.
The Bears. The Bears.
They're probably not going to be very good this year. Done the projections yet, but
when you put no effort into rebuilding your team, you get what you had the last year. So that system is completely failing.
And this year too, like the drafting of Velus Jones and not adding anyone other than Byron Pringle. Like, no disrespect to Byron Pringle, the professional, but his talent level is not a wide receiver 2 or even a wide receiver 3 on a team. And that, I think, prompted Kansas City this past offseason to make the moves that they did and drafting Sky Moore, signing Marcus Valdes-Scantling, signing Juju Smith-Schuster to make sure that there wasn't a gap in the wide receiver core, because Byron Pringle was getting significant snaps for the Chiefs last season, and Mecole Hardman is #not good at football. To bring it back to your Irv Smith take, I love the Irv Smith take, not only because of his talent himself, but also if you're stacking Vikings, he's a really cheap option to stack in a good offense.
That's what I'm doing right now.
He's showing
I'm in a slow draft, and I'm slow drafting, and I'm stacking, baby.
There you go. Irv Smith, I love the call there, and he should not be going that late in the middle of the 12th round, 13th round.
Yeah, absolutely not.
All right, my last sleeper, and then we'll get into some breakout candidates here, Emily.
Ooh, I'm excited. What do you have for us?
My last sleeper is Jalen Tolbert, rookie wide receiver, Dallas Cowboys. Can he make the top 24 wide receiver? Here's the case. He's an above average athlete, above average speed, 6'1", 195. He was a 4-year player at South Alabama, so he can start right away. He doesn't need the early declare, a couple games to get used to it. He can start right away because the Cowboys need him to play right away with Michael Gallup out with the ACL, probably until mid-November. So Tolbert's going to start right away. He gets an opportunity with a fast-paced offense. And he crushed his junior and senior years, 2020 and 2021 season, both of them over 1,000 receiving yards, over 32% target share. His player profiler comp is Adam Thielen.
Nice.
Which is wild to me that this type of player went to the end of the 3rd round, so still day 2 draft capital. He's going to get integrated pretty immediately, and his only other competition for this wide receiver 2 role is James Washington.
Unbelievable.
So Jalen Tolbert should very much be on everybody's radar, not just for dynasty purposes, but also redraft purposes.
I'm glad you pointed that out. I'm glad you pointed it out for dynasty and redraft purposes. Absolutely. Not just best ball there.
Not just best ball.
I'm excited to get into the breakout candidates, though.
Absolutely.
Should we remind our guests what the breakout candidate means?
Absolutely. So a breakout candidate is an unproven player. Usually it could be a player who's only played 1 year, or maybe they got hurt, or maybe there's been questions about their performance in the past, something like that. A breakout, an unproven player who we think can have a top 12 running back or wide receiver season, or a top 6 quarterback or tight end season. So this is raising the bar. It's not just that they're going to be fantasy relevant, is that they can hit some elite level outcomes for you. So Emily, kick us off. Who is your first breakout candidate?
My first breakout candidate, I did not go as deep as I went for my next few, but this quarterback is being drafted at 184. He's 23 years old, out of New England, Mac Jones. There's nothing but praise from the coaching staff and players alike coming out of minicamp. He's really trying to hone in on his leadership skills on the field, and those characteristics will translate well on the field. This will be a huge boost for his stock and everyone else on the Patriots. And he's been showing improvement in the long ball, and his passing accuracy has improved as well. You're looking at a QB that can crack the top 5, in my opinion. I think he's closer. He's close this year. I think it's going to be his year. So I think people should keep an eye on Mac Jones. Absolutely.
Yeah, we can't forget about Mac Jones. He had arguably the best rookie year out of any of the rookie quarterbacks last season.
He did.
He showed his accuracy, and even being a game manager, like he didn't turn the ball over a lot. He was accurate. He made throws when he needed to. He had his rookie hiccups, but yeah, he definitely played the best out of any of the other rookies. One could maybe argue Davis Mills, but Mills was still a 3rd-round pick who didn't get started and was on a really bad team and had more errors. Jones, I think, much more safer than Davis Mills. So there are a lot of things that Jones has now going into year 2. He has Devontae Parker, right? Drafted Tyquan Thornton. So there are, and I think you'll talk about him later.
I do.
But before we get to Thornton, I think that there are more weapons here. There's still Aguilar. There's still Jacoby Myers. So, yeah, I think that there's reasons for optimism for Mac Jones for sure.
Absolutely. Who do you have?
My first breakout candidate is Kadarius Toney.
Ooh.
Yeah, Kadarius Toney last year only played 10 games, but in 10 games, he averaged almost 6 targets per game. But if you remember, he had to leave a lot of those games early. In fact, there were 3 games last season where he played less than 30% of snaps. So he wasn't involved very much at all in those games. Aside from that, he had 1 week where he was the wide receiver 5 overall for that week. He had 29.6 fantasy points, 189 receiving yards, 10 receptions, 13 targets. But that game, only a 58% snap share. He moves like he's a human joystick. I know that a lot of other people have called him that, but it was the injuries that slowed him down last year and not getting started in this Giants offense. And if you think that it makes sense, if I'm stacking Daniel Jones, if I think Daniel Jones is going to do, Kadarius Toney very much could be this wide receiver 1. He could be the alpha over Kenny Golladay. We've never seen Kenny Golladay have more than a 22% target share. And Toney last season, 28.9% target rate. So when he was on the field, almost 30% of the time they were throwing him the ball.
That's unbelievable. Those are good stats.
So I think that he's a player that going at wide receiver 44, like you've already drafted your first 3 wide receivers, maybe 4 wide receivers by that time. Kadarius Toney is like icing on the cake.
Yeah. I have a few shares of him. I can't give away all my secrets, but I'm with you.
Fair enough. All right. Hit us with your second breakout candidate here, Emily.
I apologize if I didn't follow our directions for the setup, the content of this course here we're doing. But I stuck with New England and I went deeper sleepers here and I went with Tyquan Thornton out of New England again. He's going at ADP 214. He definitely has the potential to be a wide receiver 1 because he's a speedster if you've seen him on the field, and his big frame it gives him the ability to better catch contested balls in the air. If he establishes chemistry with Mac Jones and he stays consistent at catching the ball, I think he could easily crack the top 20 of wide receivers because the Patriots are so pass heavy. I don't know if you want to add anything to that. I know I went deeper there, but I hope that's okay.
Yeah, Thornton is 100th percentile 40-yard dash. He was the fastest rookie at the combine. 93rd percentile speed score. So 6'2", 183, still ran a 4.28. Ridiculous speed and burst. 90th percentile burst score. His catch radius is really wide because he's 6'2". He's not like a short Rondell Moore or Wandell Robinson or that profile of a player. No, he's a big framed, big bodied player. He's skinny, so he's probably gonna have to put on a little bit of weight, probably slim down for getting that 40-yard dash down. But at Baylor last season, 950 receiving yards in 14 games. He had a 28% target share, and he was involved in special teams. And I think that's something that the Patriots really value is these versatile players. And maybe Tyquan Thornton doesn't get to play immediately at the beginning of the year, but the draft capital is there. The athletic profile is there. And his production at Baylor was respectable for sure. So if you expect Mac Jones to take a leap, he very well may be throwing deep to the likes of Tyquan Thornton here.
That's a good call. That's excellent information you added. Thank you.
Yeah.
Who do you have?
This one's been getting a lot of Twitter hype, and I've been fueling the flames a little bit.
Oh, you're guilty.
I am guilty of it. I was getting a little bit of pushback on how much I love Rashad Bateman this year.
I'm a fan.
I sent out a tweet a couple days ago, and it was, in short, Rashad Bateman's median target share is probably going to land around 26%. And the Twitter hive lost its mind about Rashad Bateman. But let's take a step back. His median target share last season, 19.5% target share as a rookie. 2, Marquise Brown is gone. There's no one else to throw to. They're not going to throw to Devin Duvernay. They're not going to throw to James Proche. They're not going to throw to, let me pull up my projections because I don't want to insult these players, but they're not going to gain Shamar Bridges, Travon Clark, Rayleigh Webb, Tylan Wallace was a wash, right? These are actual wide receivers. I could just make up a name and you'd believe that they were on the Baltimore Ravens wide receiver corps. Slade Bolden, Devon Williams, Jalen Moore, Makai Polk. These are real wide receivers who are currently on the roster for the Baltimore Ravens. They're not going to get any run. It's going to be Bateman. It's going to be Andrews. And if you thought that the target shares between Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet are going to be around 50%, it could be Rashad Bateman and Mark Andrews in the same ballpark. So
yeah, it could be.
So I like Rashad Bateman. His player profiler comp is Stephon Diggs. So I like that. And he showed some upside last season. Had a couple good games. He was wide receiver 18, week 14 against Cleveland. He was wide receiver 21 against Byron Jones in Miami, and that's a good cornerback. So I think they wouldn't trade Marquise Brown away if the Baltimore Ravens weren't confident in the breakout themselves for Rashad Bateman.
Okay. I love that.
Yeah. Anything you want to add about Rashad Bateman? I know you've been seeing some of the hype for him too.
I have. No, I'm just a fan. I have my shares and I can't add much. You should hear yourself. You're quite comprehensive. There's not much to add after you.
Let's hear about your third breakout candidate.
Sure.
I see it here and
yes.
I just want to say I'm a big fan of it. So please tell me all about your third breakout candidate.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're a fan. I'm choosing Chris Evans out of Cincinnati, running back 3. He's being drafted as low as 211. Last year, he got his shot in the backfield, and he did pretty well with some good flashes of speed and breaking tackles. So I think given more opportunity for playing time, and especially if the Bengals decide to utilize him as a 3-down back, and he develops consistency, he could easily cut into Mixon's touches and create a 50-50 split in the backfield. As early as this year, Mixon has been injury prone the last few years, and to keep Mixon healthy, they could share the backfield. He could crack the top 30 of running backs if he keeps growing even higher. If something happens to Mixon, I just think he has a path to relevancy and people aren't looking at him. And I just want to mention he returns kicks too. So depending on your league settings and your scoring, he could be a really sneaky stash.
Ooh, I like it. I like it a lot. I'm trying to pull up here I should have pulled it up earlier. That's my bad. The Cincinnati Bengals backfield from last season.
Last season.
Yeah, in 2021. So I agree with you. Joe Mixon, he's going to get the majority of the between the tackles carries. But last season, Samaje Perine was the running back too, and he was getting all sorts of work, even in the Super Bowl. It was awkward. Yeah. And then, but Chris Evans, if per PFF, Pro Football Focus, last season graded Joe Mixon at a 31.5 grade out of 100 in pass blocking. Samaje Perine at 28.3. Chris Evans, 84.1. This is a player who's going to be on the field for third downs. And then even comparing the receiving grades for all players on the Cincinnati Bengals, Chris Evans had the highest receiving grade of any Bengal. Even higher than Jamar Chase, higher than T. Higgins, higher than Tyler Boyd. This is a player who can really catch the ball and play well. So I don't know if they'll be splitting work by the end of it, but Chris Evans is the player who you want taking really late here and can step in. I think it's very clear it's not Samaje Perine. If you're handcuffing Joe Mixon, or if you want a piece of this the Cincinnati offense super cheap, Chris Evans. I agree with you there, Emily. That's a great pick.
Thank you. I'm glad we agree on one, especially this one.
My dad is a Bengals fan, and so I talk with him about the Bengals from time to time. So he gives me a
That's
praise
nice.
of, yeah, I'm the Packers fan. He's the Bengals fan. He grew up in Cleveland, but swore off the Browns after they moved to Baltimore. So
A lot of people are swearing off the Browns.
he also swore off the
Currently.
Browns. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to swear off the Browns. They fired
Sure
Paul
are.
Brown and then moved to Baltimore, and then the Deshaun Watson situation, which is a complete aside and an absolute mess. So I'm yikes. Anyways,
Yikes is the word.
I think that's putting it very mildly.
How about some Yiddish? I gewalt.
Yes. I don't know what that
vey.
means, but oy vey. Teaching me foreign languages on the podcast. I love it there, Emily. All right, my next breakout candidate. You'll notice a theme here. All of them are sophomore players. They were rookies last year who flashed a little bit, but for whatever reason, just didn't put it all together. And this year, it's going to be Elijah Moore season. Incoming. I love Elijah Moore. One of the biggest Elijah Moore stands you'll find. He, last year, week 9 against Indianapolis, was the number 1 wide receiver overall for the week. Against Indy. They're a good defense.
Very.
And in
one
full
of the
PPR.
top.
Yeah, he only played 76% of snaps in that game. Still had 7 catches, 84 yards, 2 touchdowns. And it was the best wide receiver week we saw that week 9. Elijah Moore has all of the workout match. He was a great athlete. He could separate, played really well at Ole Miss, had the draft capital, 2 early second round. And I'm not worried about Garrett Wilson. I'm not worried about Corey Davis. This is a player who last year had a 25% target rate and an 18% target share when it was Mike White, Josh Johnson throwing the ball.
Right.
Zach Wilson, we expect to at least take a step forward. I'm not a huge believer in Zach Wilson.
Me neither.
But I think he does at least take a little step forward this year. And that means Elijah Moore is going to go along with him. And there's no Jamison Crowder now. It's Elijah Moore season. Sign me up.
It's alive and well. It is alive and well, my friends.
Yeah, he's going as wide receiver 32 right now, ADP 66. So for those at home. Emily, hit us with your last breakout candidate here.
I feel a little bad for your listeners because I should have hit them with some juicier, lower ADP ones. But I do have to say that people should keep their eye on Hussein Haskins out of Tennessee running back. RB2, his path to relevance is quite simple, and it's 1, the very obvious. Derrick Henry, he's not exposed, he's not done with, but he's getting there. He's getting older. He's up there in age. If he gets injured, I'm going to use a phrase of one of my best friends, Christopher Falcone. He says he'll be swimming in milk and honey because he would have all the opportunity. And then I just think all the high volume of touches because the Titans rely so heavily on the run. And if Haskins gets the opportunity to be a 3-down back and be consistent, he could crack the top 20 in running backs just by the sheer potential of the volume he can receive in that offense, being that it is so run heavy.
Look, if you're fading Derrick Henry this year, you need to be picking up Hassan Haskins.
Yes.
You can't be both. I'm in on Henry and I'm in on or out on Henry and out on Haskins. You need to have Haskins you need to have him if you're not drafting Henry. Because I'm a big believer that you don't draft your own handcuff. Steal other people's handcuffs, and he is the exact type of player that you want to be stealing off of waivers or late in your drafts. We saw what role the Tennessee Titans gave to the number 1 rusher last season in Derrick Henry's absence, and it was Donta Foreman. Week 14, Donta Foreman, running back 15. Week 15, running back 11. Week 17, running back 13. And even on the weeks where he didn't do great, he was still running back 31 and 37. Like, he didn't get running back 50, 60. Like, he was still useful, and Always had that touchdown potential. And Hassan Haskins, he may not be much of a pass catcher, but he's built like Derrick Henry, 6'2", 228. Yep. No one will be built exactly like Derrick Henry. He's his own beast.
Yeah,
but maybe a better comp would be like Carlos Hyde.
That's fair.
And Carlos Hyde was a productive player in the NFL for many years.
He was.
So I like that call. You need to be, if you're out on Henry, you need to be in on Haskins. And if you're out on both of them, I guess you want Julius Chestnut. But
what are you doing?
Nevertheless, no, I think Hassan Haskins has a firm stranglehold in that number 2. So good call there, Emily. Breakout candidate. He certainly has a chance. Derrick Henry's 28 and he has 5 screws in his foot.
5 screws. He cannot go to the airport and get through security without the metal detectors going off.
Yeah, he may not be able to get through
his coverage without. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I like that. Yeah, he can't get through. But a player who I do expect to get through, my breakout candidate this year, my 4th one, last one, and then we'll get into deep cuts. Ramondre Stevenson, running back for the New England Patriots.
It's a great one.
He doesn't have a great athletic profile. Pretty slow player, but he's a big bruiser who can catch passes. And that's something that the Patriots are going to be without. James White is probably not going to start the year. Some people expect him to not even make the roster. So if it's Ramondre Stevenson, he played about a third of snaps last season. But what was crazy is we mentioned Kadarius Toney being the human joystick. Ramondre Stevenson's juke rate was 35.4%. That was 4th among all running backs. He was 20th among running backs in breakaway run rate, 19th in yards per touch, 26th in evaded tackles, but 26th in evaded tackles playing a third of the snaps. Wild to me. Yards created per touch, 15th among all running backs. And this is a player who, given just a little bit more playing time, we could see it really happen. And if you're out on Damian Harris, if you think Damian Harris's touchdowns are going to regress or his workload's going to regress at all, which it might, the Patriots have always been a difficult running back group to pin down.
No kidding.
Ramondre Stevenson is the best bet, I think, among all of the backs in that backfield.
Yeah. I have quite a few shares of him. I feel like I can't come on your show again because I feel like I'm going to give away all my secrets. I'm getting nervous now that my group of people on Sleeper are all going to catch on to me.
He's going at running back 38 right now. So I think he's a good value. 114th overall. Yeah. Take at least have him be one of the players you rotate through picking at that spot.
I think that's a fantastic one. So good pickings there.
Thanks. All right, Emily, we've got the last portion of our podcast tonight. We've got one deep cut each. This is a player who's going after ADP 200 on Underdog. Who is your deep cut?
My deep cut is Nico Collins, wide receiver out of Houston. So he plays for the Texans and he's going at about pick 200. So I hope that's all right. But if we see Davis Mills keep showing more improvements, the sky is the limit for Collins getting passing yards because the Texans' backfield is muddled right now. So there's no solid RB1 to rely on. They're going to be playing from behind a lot. There should be plenty of opportunities for Collins to catch passes. I'd say he could easily crack the top 20 if he gets that volume.
Nico Collins, product out of Michigan. You've been choosing a lot of Michigan players.
Michigan's right next door to Wisconsin, so I don't know. Do I have a bias? We'll have to see. I hope not.
Maybe. But Nico Collins, he did struggle at Michigan a little bit, but he has the profile. And who's going to be the wide receiver 2 behind Brandon Cooks? Chris Conley? No. I agree with you. I think Nico Collins is probably going to be the wide receiver 2, and to get him at pick 200 is just unfathomable. but there's usefulness in this Texans offense. Last season, week 18, do you know? Okay, I hate to put you on the spot. I'm sorry, Emily. I apologize in advance for putting you on the spot. But we're going to play
I
a
haven't
trivia
slept
game.
in 2 days. Let me just
Oh, no.
process it with that.
All right, so week 18, the last week of the season, the wide receiver one, I've already hinted at it, that at least it's on the Texans. But do you know who the wide receiver one was overall on week 18 last season?
For the Texans?
No, he was the wide receiver one overall for the entire NFL. Week 18, he was on the Texans last year.
No, I don't know off the top of this sleepy head.
I
You could have asked me 2 days ago.
Danny Amendola.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, how did he? Why? Because I forever picture him as a Patriot, and I just couldn't get it through my tired head.
Somehow, Danny Amendola, he played weeks 1, 2, 7, 8, 9, 11, and 12. And then he didn't play again until week 18, where he was the best wide receiver in the NFL there. 113 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, and 7 receptions on 8 targets. 32.3 fantasy points. So, yes, there is some usefulness in this Houston offense. I like Nico Collins, his build. He's got the athletic profile. And if you expect Davis Mills and all the other rookie quarterbacks from last year to take a step forward, Nico Collins is poised to also take a step forward. So I like that deep cut. Thanks, Emily.
Hey, can I ask you, are you going to the Fantasy Football Expo?
I most certainly am.
We will meet in person there. That'll be fantastic.
Awesome.
I'm excited even more.
This is going to be great. I went last year and I was just overtired. Like, I met a lot of awesome people, but I was overtired because I was in charge of Summer Academy and I was just burnt to a crisp. And so my brain was still like, but I went to it and it was a lot of fun. It was really good. So I'm hoping to see, you and a lot of other people there. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be great.
It should be. So who's your deep cut?
All right. Yeah. So I used to have a segment, Emily. I'll take a step back. I used to have a segment maybe every week where during the season I would choose a deep cut. And during the summer, I also had some deep cuts. And one of the weeks I chose Robert Tonyan as my deep cut of the week. I have audio proof that Robert Tonyan was my deep cut of the week before his breakout season. And
awesome.
Ever since that time, so my former co-host Billy Muzio of Full Time Fantasy, he bought me this Robert Tonyan framed jersey because of all of the money that he won because I told him to draft Robert Tonyan.
Oh, that's such a cool story. Do you want to know? I also have a Giannis in my room here, and I also have a Brett Favre signed jersey, in addition to Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Deebo Samuel, and a Cooper Kupp.
I'm so jealous. Those are some really good ones.
They're pretty good, but my bank account is Pristine Auction loves me. So a little plug for Pristine Auction. Please sponsor my podcast that's coming out in September.
Hey, you heard it here. Pristine Auction, get on it. My deep cut of the week, Cedric Wilson.
Ooh. Listen up now, people.
Yeah, so Cedric Wilson, 6th round draft pick back in 2018, played on Dallas for a while, was stuck behind Amari Cooper, stuck behind Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb, but he's improved each of his last 3 seasons. We've seen his yards per reception, his receiving yards, his receptions, his air yards, receiving touchdowns. In fact, Cedric Wilson is one of only 8 wide receivers to improve their wide receiver 1 rate. So the rate at which they had top 12 weeks, both from 2019 to 2020 and from 2020 to 2021. He's now on the Miami Dolphins. And he's stuck behind Jalen Waddle and he's stuck behind Tyreek Hill. But Cedric Wilson, he's going to play a significant role in this offense. We were seeing the likes of Mac Hollins last year getting target share. We were seeing just random people off the street getting targets from Tua Tagovailoa, and now they bring in Cedric Wilson. Last season, Cedric Wilson had a 10% target share 19.3% target rate. So when he was on the field, he was being targeted almost 20% of the time. Not too bad. And looking at a few other, he had 6 touchdowns. He has a nose for the end zone. But one of the things I like, he had the 11th best target separation. And on an offense where they're going to be maybe scheming Tyreek Hill or scheming Jalen Waddle, this is a player who can get open against other defenses, not just relying on his speed, because he's not very fast, 4.55 40. But Cedric Wilson, and if one of those wide receivers goes down with injury, wheels up.
Yeah, wheels up.
Now, if you're like, Bradley, I don't know about that, blah, 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 blah. Who else had a 10% target share last year? Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis had the same target share.
And we all know what happened.
Gabe Davis had almost the same target share as Cedric Wilson last season. And yet we see Gabe Davis is going at wide receiver 24, 25. They have about the same type of profile. You can't be super excited about. You can be excited about Gabe Davis and the opportunity he has, but Cedric Wilson has almost the same profile. And if he gets some more work, this is a player who's going to pay off wide receiver 19.9, 213th overall.
You know what, Bradley? Next time I come on your show, I'm going to have all the stats you want, because I didn't know you were going to go there so much, but stats are totally my thing, and I will bring it next time. I promise. Let's do it again.
Oh, I think you've definitely brought it for the podcast. I appreciate the volleying back and forth there, Emily. Awesome. Thanks, Emily. I do appreciate you jumping on and reaching out and us finally nailing down a date. That was great.
Yes.
It was great chatting with you about the sleeper, breakout, and of course the deep cuts. You can follow Emily on Twitter at MPoweredF. You can find her content Yards Per and Dynasty Nerds. Emily, do you have any other plugs for us?
I do have a fantasy football podcast coming out in September called Hustlers Fantasy Football Podcast, and you can follow us at HustlersFF. That's it. No.com.
Awesome. Excellent. So check out Emily's podcast that's coming up. It's going to drop soon?
In September.
All right.
Right before the start. Right when it matters. We'll start it off with Basic Fantasy 101, and then we'll get right into our segments. So it's going to be awesome.
Fantastic. Great news. Awesome. Yeah, looking forward to hearing all the good things that you and is this a solo pod or a crew that you're going to be working with?
It's going to be a crew, so I think it's going to be a rotation of co-hosts.
Awesome. Looking forward to hearing what all of you have to say and getting that kick started. Well, that'll do it for today's pod. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed to the Best Bell Fantasy Podcast, make sure you do wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to check out the Best Bell YouTube channel, where I'll be doing live drafts or interviews and discussions like tonight throughout the offseason. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at FFStalter. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. In the meantime, good luck in the best ball streets.
Nice.